You think only adults are having housing challenges? Wrong. Students, young people, young mothers are having what to many are unbelievable difficulties finding somewhere to live. We'll be talking about this in this program. But we begin with Barrow, Freedom Fighter, the title of a new film about the man who placed Barbados on the international landscape. Errol Barrow reshaped the lives and future of Barbadians, and along with powerhouse names like Michael Manley of Jamaica and Eric Williams of Trinidad and Tobago, brought the Caribbean to the attention of the world's superpowers, the United States, Canada, Britain, China. Joining me to discuss the film and the impact of the man Errol Barrow are the producers, Dave and Marcia Weeks. Welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It's good to be here.
Tell me about this film. I can't wait to see it.
Okay, Barrow Freedom Fighter is a film that was produced in Barbados. It was produced in 2016, and so far has had, I would say, very, very good success. When it screened in Barbados, persons who saw it, one comment that everyone coming out of the cinema said was that everyone should see this film. And people are surprised by the volume of information that they learned or picked up from the film. I mean, every year in Barbados we celebrate independence, November 30th. And the radio stations and television stations normally put out infomercials about independence and who did what at independence and some of the things that are achieved by independence. But I think this film has delved way deeper into some of the things that Mr. Errol Walton Barrow has done for Barbados in the Caribbean as a Caribbean statesman. His influence spread so far beyond Barbados. It's amazing when you watch the film. And then to see that as a leader coming from the Caribbean, and no one pretty much knows about him, that's something that we believe needs to be corrected because he is such a tremendous leader that we believe the world needs to know about Errol Walton Barrow.
Why did you decide to do this documentary about Errol Barrow?
Well, I guess that's where I come in. Well, I'm the writer and director of the film, and it all started, I was in Canada promoting another film, Chrissy, that I wrote and directed. And while I was there, I had the privilege of reading a book by Mr. Gene Holder on Mr. Barrow. And when I read it, I just couldn't believe that this book even existed because we don't really hear much about that book in Barbados, in the Caribbean, really. In fact, at the time, it was out of print. And this person just happened to have a copy in their home. And I was just blown away by the things this man accomplished, his character, and I was inspired by the story. And I thought, you know what, if I read it twice in my trip to Canada. And I felt that if I was this inspired, that I really needed to do something. I need to do a film that would inspire young people. So really, as I wrote this docudrama, I was thinking of young people. I was thinking about a legacy. I was thinking about sharing, all of the things that I found out about this man, the great leadership qualities. I wanted children all over, whether it's the Caribbean region, throughout Africa, the USA, wherever you were. I wanted young people to be inspired by this great leader. And so that's why I did the film.
As I said earlier, I look forward to seeing that film.
All right.
Yeah.
And I recall being at Wesley Hall School in Barbados.
Yes.
And trying to get to Harrison College. Passed the first exam, passed the second exam, failed the interview. Went back the next year, passed the first exam, passed the second exam, failed the interview.
That's mentioned in the film.
And so I ended up not going to Harrison College.
Wow.
Okay.
My sister, similar problem, went to Richmond.
That's addressed.
Then Errol Barrow got into power. And my younger brother went to Harrison College. My younger sister went to Queen's College.
You missed the boat.
My other sister, she went from Richmond to St. Michael's.
Oh, gosh.
So Errol Barrow has certainly done so much for, you said young people, but for young people. Talk to us about how you address this in the film.
The young people or the...
Yeah, the young people. What he's done for young people.
Right. Again, not having the opportunity to go to what we call the good grammar
The
schools.
good grammar schools.
The good grammar schools in Barbados. And then those who are on the cusp of that intervention, I would call it an intervention, having the chance. It's addressed in the film. You get people. We were able to interview and talk to people who were on the cusp, and they indicated that they felt so proud to be able to rub shoulders with the elites of the day, the doctors and the lawyers. They were normal, common, poor people, what you would call common class, poor people.
Right.
And they were able to go to schools that the doctors' sons and daughters went to. They were elated. And these are things that come out in the film. And they bring up a kind of a nostalgic emotion from these people. And some of them wept. Some people weep in the film, during the film. Because it's so real when you're of a certain generation.
Yes.
It is very real.
And I mean, young people today, when they see the film, they now understand the struggle. They're more appreciative of, listen, I'm here today because somebody, a leader, that's why we need great leaders, to intervene when we have things, going haywire. And so he intervened and made education free, at all levels. And
How long did it take you to make this film?
Well, from the time when the idea came until, it'll be 3 years.
Yes.
3 years research, a lot of research. And, in the Caribbean, we don't necessarily keep the best of records. So it was quite a task, and which is one of the reasons we need this, I believe, should be the first of many films.
Yes.
Because we have such great leaders. And I believe that we need to be able to share them with the world and to share what we've accomplished as a Caribbean people. And we can't wait on anybody else to tell our stories. We have to tell our stories ourselves.
Do you plan to do any on Michael Manley?
Would love to.
Michael Manley or Trinidad's Eric Williams?
Well, we would love to. We would love
Once
to.
we get the funding, the support to do it, we're ready. We're ready. We believe this first film is the beginning, and there will be others coming.
We're soon in 2018. What is 2018 looking like for you?
Oh, wow.
Producer, film writer, team, production team?
For Step-by-Step Productions.
Step Productions.
Yeah.
Right. We have a few projects that are in the pipeline, but they're not concrete as yet, so we wouldn't be able to say we'll be doing X or Y. But we're in the process of fine-tuning and getting some projects out. But we don't have a specific project in hand as of now to say we're doing this in 2018. But we know we will be doing stuff in 2018 because there's too much stuff to be done.
What was particularly special about Errol Barrow?
For me, it's the fact that he was such a visionary. Some of the policies that he dealt with then, or the ideas that he had in that day. To see us living it now. Take, for example, even NIFCA. That's the National Independence Festival of Creative Arts in Barbados. Yes. And just his foresight in making that, something that we today could enjoy. We talked already about education, him being able to see, that, listen, once we educate our people, then the sky's the limit. That kind of vision, I think for me was just, it was life-changing, reading that about that man in that day and the way he dealt with people of all different color. He Errol Barrow is going to tell you as it is. He is going to tell you as it is. He stood up for his people, stood up for Barbados, and had great vision of where he saw the country.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't just leading, but he had a plan. And he took the people with him, and for me, that was just amazing. Reading that as a leader, I came away with a lot. I mean,
take tourism. Back in his day, sugarcane was booming. Sugarcane was the staple, but he saw back then the need to develop a tourism industry. Yeah. I mean, that is, and today that's what we're living off of. I mean, that is absolutely visionary. I mean, how he could do that, I really don't know. And that's what we're surviving on today. Tourist circuit is gone.
Yes.
But that tourism,
But
that
he saw
in
He
the
had a
future.
vision.
He had a vision. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
How long is this film?
84 minutes, an hour and 24 minutes long. Not very long.
Now, it's been shown widely in Barbados.
It's been shown on the Olympus Cinema when it first came in November, and it's been showing during the Spirit of Independence. So it was shown last night at the Olympus again during the Independence period.
And you were trying to negotiate to have it shown here in New York as well, or not just New York,
Not
but
just
across
New York,
the United
across
States.
the U.S. We'd like to get it into Africa. We'd like to get it into the U.K. because Barrow had tremendous U.K. ties. A lot of ties to the U.K. He had ties with Singapore, Canada. So I mean, this film is the type of film that can be shown globally, and that's our objective.
Yes, and what we're for us, this is our sixth film, and we are very, very happy with the production values. We've worked really hard. We're called step-by-step productions, and it's important to us that each film that we work on, there's some improvement in some area, and so we're very thrilled with what has happened with the film. We've just received in Barbados the Governor General's Award for the film, and we are
The NIFCA Gold Award.
Yeah, and the NIFCA Gold Award. So we're very, very happy about that, and we've sent it out to various festivals, etc. And the people in Barbados love the film.
What are some of the other films that you've done?
Well, we did the Hush series, which is Hush 1, 2, and 3. We also did Chrissy, which I think you probably remember, Chrissy.
Yes, yes, I do.
And we did Vigilante, The Crossing, and now Barrow, Freedom Fighter. And so what we're really about is about telling our stories. We're Caribbean people, we're Caribbean filmmakers in the Caribbean, and we have a lot of stories that we want to tell the world. And so we're using film to do that.
Lots of Caribbean people often accuse Caribbean leaders of getting too involved in the stories that are told. We hear that about Caribbean leaders on their radio stations and Caribbean leaders on their television stations. Do you experience this in terms of your film? Is there any interference?
Interference?
Yes.
Well, I mean, for me as a writer, definitely not, because especially with a docudrama, you have to tell truth, and so one of the things that you will find when you come to see the film is that we're looking at everything about Mr. Barrow, the good and the bad. So here we are saying he was a great visionary, but then there were some things that he struggled with, and something because he's human, and we wanted to present that to young people.
And that's in the film as well.
Yes, here's a man. He's human. He had faults and failures and ups and downs.
It wasn't perfect.
It wasn't perfect. And so this imperfect man did this wonderful, thing for our country, and so can you, because we're all imperfect people.
What I would say to add to that is that in making the film, it's not a political film. So we strive very hard not to go down any specific political road.
Yeah.
And what we tried to do was to have a balanced input from both major political parties in Barbados. It was a little difficult achieving that. It was difficult. And I don't know if we fully achieved it, but we surely tried.
Yes.
And that's the only, little thing I would say.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I know our New York viewers are looking forward to seeing this film.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to seeing it as
We
well.
look forward to see you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
We want to thank
and-
the festival for having us there.
Right.
African Diaspora Film Festival.
Yes.
Yes, and also the BTMI, Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
Yes.
For their support.
And the Barbados Consulate as well.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dave and Marcia Weeks, producers of the film Barrow, Freedom Fighter. You think only adults are facing housing challenges? Wrong. Students, young people, young mothers are having what to many are unbelievable difficulties finding somewhere to live. One left her mother's home after being beaten and bloodied in her face, yes, by her mom, and is living out of a suitcase. There is a student who was put out of her father's house and is now in a shelter with her 11-year-old daughter. These are just two stories about what is a real problem for many young people, and they need help. Joining me to discuss this problem is Dave German. People refer to you as a real estate powerhouse. Welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure having me here. Thank you.
Let's talk about how do we help young people get out of the difficulties that they're in right now as far as finding housing.
So, as everybody knows what's going on in Brooklyn, the housing market right now is actually one of the hottest housing markets in the country, especially in Brooklyn. So, with gentrification coming through and the prices, the supply and demand, housing has become now a scarcity even amongst people who have money. So I think how I've gotten a lot of students, whether getting the rental property, they would have to come together like roommates and pretty much use their income or their parents who can be a guarantor for them in order to actually help them get it. But some kids or some students, they don't have that help. So it's actually a tragedy to hear stories like that. I'm actually starting pretty much a situation where we're helping kids and also people start the path to home ownership. And that's pretty much the only way that I know that you can actually solve this problem, which is home ownership. Renting here in New York City, you're at the mercy of the landlord. And in order to overcome that situation, we definitely have to implement getting permanent housing, getting owning properties, owning businesses, things of that nature.
So why are young people having these difficulties? You said earlier that one problem is that they don't have the money. But what are some of the other reasons and what are some of the other solutions that you may be able to offer them?
Well, with the job market being what it is, there's a lot of high income tech jobs, but our kids, because I'm a former school teacher, I worked at John Jay High School, shout out to John Jay High School, right here in Park Slope, and I can tell you from working 15 years in the Board of Education that the school system is not preparing them to earn the salaries that they need to earn, compared to their counterpart kids in the suburbs or Catholic schools, private schools, things of that nature. So we have to really dig down deep with the whole school system in itself, because that right there is the root of the problem. They're getting jobs that are what I call dead-end jobs, jobs that are not careers that will lead to long-term growth. It's just basically stagnant. You can't survive off a minimum wage today in New York. It's not going to happen. Nowadays, if you don't make at least $100,000 or close to that, it's going to be really hard to stay in the city. And that's what I get. I get a ton of calls every day about people who are in these situations. The homeless population right now is bursting through the seams right now, and it seems like it's a business.
In Brooklyn?
In Brooklyn. We have so many homeowners going through foreclosure as well. So we have to change, pretty much how our mindset, because for me, a job just stands for just over broke. It's not going to make you wealthy. So we really need to start creating businesses, opportunities. I actually have a business where I help young people either intern or I train them how to become licensed agents. And if they want to start their own company, brokerage, that's what I try to do. And we also teach them how to invest, because we're not taught financial literacy.
No,
we're not taught how to invest. I mean, I'm a victim of that myself. I didn't have a father or somebody to teach me, or that conversation. Like right now at the dinner table, we don't have that conversation at the dinner table. So these kids, they don't know about finance.
They don't know about saving.
They don't know about savings.
They don't know about investing.
They don't know about investing. No.
Talk to the issue of credit checks.
If we're going to be totally transparent, I think credit checks is a form of discrimination. Even some of the landlords who actually rent these apartments don't have the credit that they're asking tenants for themselves, And I understand the value of credit, and I understand that credit plays a major role today, but I think nowadays it's used as a discriminatory practice, you know, for not only just young people, but just in society as a whole, poor people as a whole. And we need to do something because everybody made mistakes. I made mistakes, you know, with my credit, you know, and we shouldn't be punished for housing just because you made a mistake in credit. But, you know, I don't write the laws, so that's where our congressmen and congresswomen in power really have to, you know, implement it. Go to your city council meetings, you know, and implement laws. We do have power. We have rights, you know.
Yeah.
Don't be voiceless. We definitely can change a lot of the things that are going on right now if we come and unite as one.
From your experience, why is the housing market so competitive?
Well, it's always been competitive, but it's more of a supply and demand. I think ever since rezoning started happening in New York City and the Barclays Center coming here in 2012, you know, they planned it a while ago, but a lot of people didn't have foresight and vision of how Brooklyn would be today. Who would have thought right down the block, 300 Ashland, we have an Apple store about to open up next week, the second one in Brooklyn. So who would have thought that, you know, 10 years ago, you know, for anybody who's been in Brooklyn all their life.
What kind of economic range would a student or a young person need to be in to get a rental apartment?
Okay, so typically New York City landlords, they want you to make 40 times the rent, anywhere between 35 and 40 times the rent. And what that means is that 40% of your income should be going to rent. So for every $100 that you make, $40 should go to rent, 60%, you should be able to live off of 60%.
And landlords want to see that?
Yes. Unfortunately, this is the rule, the rent rule that they use today to basically determine if you're qualified.
Okay, continue. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go on.
So if you make under that, then a lot of times you have a hard time getting an apartment because you don't make the 40-time rent rule. So if you make anywhere between $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, it's very hard to get an apartment in New York City. If you Google the average cost of a one-bedroom apartment in New York, it will blow your mind. It's literally it's about $3,000. So, and then the rents are going up, but then people's salaries are staying the same. So, you know, we have to change the concept of how to invest our money and make our money work for us, you know, and I wish I could say I have a one-size-fits-all equation that could solve a lot of the issues, but I just know that, you know, group economics coming together, we're starting a Buy Back the Block or Lose the Block campaign, where we can teach people how to invest. My company, we teach people how to invest, and we don't charge what a lot of, you know, you have like, not to name them, but, you know, they have companies charging $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 to teach people how to invest. And just like here, they teach you how to, you know, be in the studio and learn TV. We also do the same thing, and we do it for free.
You know, when I was in college, I worked and I rented an apartment. My brother, when he was in college, he worked
Right.
and rented an apartment. And there are so many students who do the same thing,
Right.
or who did the same thing back then.
Right.
A lot of students are finding it so very difficult to do that today.
Well, a lot of them, they don't have me on their team. So if they call me up, I'm one of the people that have excellent relationships with landlords. But at the end of the day, it's very difficult right now. It's a landlord's market and it's a seller's market. You know, the real estate cycle, you know, is up and down. And right now we're in that cycle where landlords can really literally pick and choose anybody they want. You have so many people relocating to New York and also from overseas coming into our town. I mean, if you say anywhere Brooklyn, you could be in Australia and people know about Brooklyn. You know, that's how far, you know, investors from Middle East to Asia, they're investing heavily in Brooklyn right now. And when these investors are coming into our communities, they're not thinking about the community, they're thinking about the dollar and how much money is a profit. So they're not, and that's destroying the economic landscape of what the community was. Before it was a community where everybody knew their neighbor. Now it's about, you know, nobody knows your neighbor now, you know, so.
You must be complimented. You have to be complimented on the work that you're doing, not just to fill your pockets, as many
Right, it's not
real
about
estate
the
agents
money.
doing, but also to help our young people and help
Yes.
people who are in need, because as you said before, Brooklyn is changing.
Drastically.
And lots of young people are unable to afford housing.
Yes. So that's why, we're starting these initiatives, like I said, with the Buy Back the Block campaign. And we have to teach them, because I get so many calls every day. People who lived in the neighborhood for 20 years and they raise their kids there, and then the landlord says all of a sudden, we're raising the rent $300-400, and they want to stay in the neighborhood, but they can't stay there. So I said, when Brooklyn at the time in the 80s and the 90s, if you can really go back to turn the clock back, when there was a lot of drugs and crime, and then Mayor Giuliani, who gets the credit for cleaning up Brooklyn, with the Rockefeller drug laws and arresting people. Because once you get crime out the city, now the property values, and now everybody starts wanting to come back and invest.
Yes.
But we didn't take advantage of that time. A lot of people didn't have that foresight and that vision to see what was going on. But unless you were going to your city council meetings and knowing what the rezoning laws were, and that's usually meant for people who are developers and the investors, who are privy to that information.
David German, thank you. Thank you for being on our program.
Yes.
David is a real estate specialist. And I also want to thank Dave and Marcia Weeks, producers of the film Barrow, Freedom Fighter. You can watch this on Brooklyn 45, and you can watch all our Brooklyn 45 programs on our YouTube channel. And we'd love you to go to our Facebook page and post your comments. Again, if you know a middle school or high school student who has an average of 90 or above, and you'd love to have him or her featured on Brooklyn 45, go to our Facebook page and message us or email us at info@brooklyn45.com. On behalf of our entire Brooklyn 45 production team, thank you for watching our program.